Oh, where's my Instagram at? One sec. Almost there. We'll get it kicked off in just a moment. That should just take one more sec. I'll get the chat pulled up. There we go. I see some people joining already. Hello, welcome. If you want to do me a favor, I appreciate it. If you're joining in the chat, let me know you're here. Let me know it's working. Because I have definitely had some situations where it is not working, and then it's a bit of a pain in the butt. But I just want to make sure that I can go looking in the right spots if you're sending messages. Looks like Instagram just can't connect, so very interesting. Try it one more time with Instagram, then I'll give up on it. Oh, I think I copied and pasted the wrong thing. Like an idiot. That's okay. That's my fault. Oops. We do got a topic for today. It is going to be about the vicious cycle of helping other people. This is something I talk about. Oh, awesome. I'm sorry. I'm just seeing LinkedIn is okay. All good from here on YouTube. So thanks, Justin, and thanks, Geek Hamster. That's good. Cool. And with that, Instagram is also going to work. So that's good news. But this topic is actually something that I have spent a lot of time on in my career, whether that's stuff I've had to work on for myself, stuff that I've had to. I feel targeted by this topic. Welcome, Infected FPS. I hope it feels like you're targeted. Not because you are, but that tells me that it probably resonates, which is good. But I've had to work on this for myself, especially early in my career. So I'll talk about some hard lessons I had to learn. I should also mention I must be sick. I don't have a voice. We'll try to get through it. And the other part is that I'm going to approach this from the perspective of people asking for help, because that's one thing I've spent a lot of time coaching people on. And then the flip side, which is you are the person being asked for help. How can we coach you through this and make sure that you're not kind of in the vicious cycle? So we will look at that. For folks that are new to the live streams, if you are interested in knowing about what I'll be going through, it's generally going to be the newsletter topic that I have, just put out. So this is the newsletter that went out on Saturday, so this past Saturday. If you are not on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, so that means LinkedIn people, TikTok people, that's so weird. Does that mean I can't send messages to X? That's so bizarre. And I see people streaming it on Twitter, so it just tells me the chat only goes to those three platforms. So I apologize, but if you just want to know where that content is going to be, most likely for the every week's live stream, it's just weekly.devleader.ca. You do not have to subscribe to my newsletter if you're not interested in getting an email newsletter. That's totally cool. So if you just want to check out the site before the live stream or during, because you want to see what the topic's about, that's where you go, weekly.devleader.ca. So that's your heads up. But yeah, I should mention too that, and I'll plug it again later, I have a second YouTube channel. It's called Code Commute. And I've been using Code Commute to talk about topics like this as like a stream of consciousness. And I basically just drive to and from work. I'm commuting. And I keep the camera on and I just talk as if there was people driving around with me. I yell at traffic and stuff a lot. But this is one of the topics that I want to go over in Code Commute. So it felt good to talk about it, and I thought it would be a good newsletter article. And then I felt like it would be a good discussion too. So with that, another reminder that, there's people talking in the chat. I know it works because they just tested it for you. So please feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts. I know Infected FPS is basically here every single live stream, which is awesome. So they can attest to whether or not I try to answer questions and stuff, right? I would rather spend the time engaging with you, talking to you, answering your questions, than just blabbing about other stuff. So please feel free to use that. But with that said, let's get into the topic. And maybe I'll start this off with sharing. I have a couple of different stories, I guess, from my experience, and I want to share probably one of the first times I struggled with this concept of like a vicious cycle of helping other people. So, um, pretty early on in my career, if you're new here, you might not know this, but if you've been around, it's going to sound like a broken record. But when I had graduated from university, I became an engineering manager pretty early. I was at a startup. It's not because I was, the best thing since sliced bread. It's just that I happened to be someone early at the startup where they felt that I could do a good job at this, and put me into a management position. But at the time, I was also like developing software full time and managing teams. So what happened pretty early on was, as we were bringing people on, like onto the teams, into the company, there were only a few of us there, and we hadn't been there that long, but we had the most experience at the company than anyone else because we were there first. So what ended up happening at one point for me was that I I remember people would onboard, and they're trying to explore some of the product that we have. So we're building desktop digital forensic software, and someone would call me over and they say, "Hey, can you help me out with this?" Because I had rewritten some part of it or the whole thing, so I had the most experience in that area, so I would go help them. And then what would happen is that someone else would go, "Oh, Nick knows about that, so like let me go ask Nick a question." And over not that long of a period of time, what started happening was that I, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, like I would spend almost my entire like 9 to 5 period just going between people's desks and helping them. And I'm not saying that's because, again, I'm not saying because I was so amazing. It's not because they weren't smart. It's just because of how this was going, and it's because they needed help, and I figured I would just help. And I started to realize, like, I don't have time to do anything. Like, I think what I'm doing is helpful. Like, people are getting stuff done, so it must be helpful in some capacity. But I'm no longer getting my stuff done. And I also learned this about myself, that I like to work. So I basically started solving this problem by adding more work hours to the day. So I would wake up earlier, I'd get to the office sooner, and I would do my coding. People would start showing up. I would start helping people at their desks, spend the day doing that. Then people would start leaving the office, and I would start coding again. And then I'd go to the gym, I'd go home, whatever. And then at night, I would start coding again for work. So I basically solved this problem for myself just by adding in more work hours. And as you might expect, like it's not a good thing. That's not like the solution here. And it took me a while to realize that what I was doing was a vicious cycle. I was basically helping people get through their current work, but I wasn't like enabling them for next time. And that's what we're going to start talking about here. So I wanted to share the story to kind of frame up some of the mindset around this, and the fact that early in my career, so this would have been what, 11 to 12 years ago, probably 12 years ago at this point. So it's been a while. But I lived this. So we're going to start things off by looking at the perspective of people that are asking questions. So if you're a junior developer, and this applies to people that are new to teams, it could technically apply to every level, but I've seen it more common with junior developers. And this could be like interns, like literally your very first time working. And I'm not here to, this isn't about like picking on people for doing this. I hope I should maybe have like a disclaimer here. Like, I hope that none of my content or videos ever feels like I'm picking on a group of people. So if I'm talking critically about a group or something like that, it's not my intention to single groups of people out. Or if you're like, hey, that sounds like me, like I know Infected FPS is jokingly saying in the chat, I feel targeted by this topic. So if you happen to resonate with a group of people that I'm describing, I don't want you to feel like I'm talking about a group to to make you feel bad or anything. I'm talking about a group so that if it does resonate with you, I'm trying to help. So hopefully that's what comes across. And pardon me, because I can tell my voice is disappearing quickly. So with more junior developers, and in particular, I've seen this a lot with interns. There is a couple things to look at here when it comes for asking for help. Comes to asking for help. And one of the first things I would call out is like, I have noticed that a lot of the time interns or junior developers shy away from asking for help. And I wanted to just like, before talking about any other parts here, please do not shy away from asking for help, because I think that it's such a missed opportunity. I have seen people struggle to onboard, feel like they can't get any momentum. Like, it's obvious to me, it's obvious to the person going through it. Like they're like, man, like it feels like I'm not getting anything done. I have seen other people that basically can counteract this entire experience by just reaching out and asking for help and unblocking themselves. So I want to remind folks that if you're new to a place, please don't shy away from asking for help, because you have a team of people that wants to help you. They want you to get better faster so that you can be helping them. Okay? So like, don't shy away from it. Infected FPS says, I've been doing the get in before everyone an hour and a half early for 12 years. That 90 minutes is my most productive. Send help, happy face. Yep. I hear you. Yep. It's a long time to be doing it. So hopefully there's something that can help here. So if you're junior, don't shy away from asking for help. Okay. That's number one. But now the question is, okay, well, Nick said it, I'm not going to shy away, but how do I go ask for help? And I talk about this like, as in, I think there's a way that you can do this effectively, or things that you can focus on when you're asking for help. So, and I'll get to Geek Hamster's comment in just a sec, but the two primary groups of asking for help that I generally see are, one, you need clarity on something. So you've been tasked with something and you're like, I actually don't understand what's been asked of me. That's one. And number two is that you're stuck on something. So I want to start by talking about the first part, which is I need clarity, right? I'm stuck on something because I don't actually understand what's asked of me. This is something that I would not spend time waiting on. Get yourself unblocked immediately. If someone has tasked you with something and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here because I don't understand the ask, you can make this crappy in two different ways. One way is that you sit idle and go, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll wait until it clicks. Don't do that. That's a huge waste of time. And number two is guessing and assuming the wrong thing. So you go, I don't know what's being asked of me, but I guess I shouldn't wait either. So like, I'm just going to assume it's X and I'm going to go down this path. Both of these are crappy because they end up wasting time. In the first case, you're literally wasting time because you're like, I'm just not going to do anything. And I know that sounds silly, but I think what happens is that people get more nervous that they haven't done anything and now they don't want to ask for help. And this is another vicious cycle. Like, oh no, I have anxiety about not asking. So don't do that. And then the other thing that I was saying is when you pick the wrong thing, you could get lucky and happen to pick the right thing that was expected of you. But what happens when you go waste all this time and energy and it's not even what was being asked of you? Like, you wasted not only time, but now you worked on something and it's not even relevant. So in this scenario, if you need clarity, ask for help right away. Don't spend time being blocked on it. Tay, man, that's not the right answer. Helping others is not stupid, but there's a way to do this effectively. So Geek Hamster is saying, the worst part of helping other devs is when you realize the other guy you helped lasts a few weeks and suddenly moves to another company and you repeat the process with someone else, new dev. Yeah. So there are things we can do to try and optimize this. We'll get into this when we start talking about it from the other side. So we're starting with the people asking for help. So if it's not a clarity issue and you need help, the advice that I have for you is to assume that you're going to get this question. And this is going to come up later, but assume that, say you're going to come to me and ask, you want to ask me for help. And the really ironic part here is that someone watched my code commute video on this and then asked me a question. And then I said, the first thing that I taught you in this video was to do this. And they didn't do it. So I used it back on them. But you should assume that someone is going to ask you. So if you're coming to me, I'm going to ask you, what have you tried so far? It's a very simple cue. And I think that if you keep that in mind when you want to go ask for help, if you've already deemed that you don't need more clarity, you understand what's being asked of you, if you're about to ask for help, assume they're going to say, what have you tried so far? Because you should have tried something. You should have tried something because you understand what's being asked of you. Okay, so that is a good indicator that you should go at least try something, spend some time, do some problem solving, some exploring, be resourceful. Okay, go try something. You're going to be a software developer. We're spending all of our time solving problems. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So get good at it. You need to practice it. Go try something. Now you can answer the question. You've done something, so assume I'm going to say, what have you tried so far? And if you need help still, right? So you've tried something. If you still need help, it's probably because of maybe another two different scenarios. One is that you've tried a couple of things and none of them seem to work. None of them seem to do what you were asked to get done. So you need some guidance around this. And the other way is that you actually have multiple things that seem to work, but you're having difficulty weighing out which one's the best. The second scenario is a really good spot to be in, right? Maybe you need some clarity around the things that you're optimizing for, what's most valuable. It's good, right? I mean, you have 2 things or 3 things that work. That's a good spot to be in. Let's go pick one that we think is ideal. The other situation feels a little crappy, but at least you can go to someone and say, here's what I've tried so far. And now that person is better equipped to give you some guidance. Okay, so number one, they're not going to feel like, oh man, here's this person again. They don't even try anything. It's Nick again. He's knocking at my, knocking at my office door, and he's pinging me on Teams, whatever, and saying, hey, I need help. And I know that when Nick's here, he hasn't even tried anything. I got to go do all this work for him. I can't tell him no. Okay, this sucks. People aren't going to have that response to you because they're going to say, oh, it's Nick again. Nick, I know every time Nick comes to me, he's already tried some stuff out. This is good. Let's talk through what he's done so far. Okay, now you give someone context and they're better equipped to help you. They're not going to waste time trying to explain option 1 to you for 20 minutes and then you go, oh yeah, I already did that. You tell them right at the beginning what you've tried, right? Like, don't waste their time. So you tell them, and then they're able to help give you guidance around that. Now, this isn't a bulletproof mechanism that's going to mean that someone can just give you the answer after, but someone's at least able to understand that you put in some effort and they can try guiding you down the next steps. The coughing is never going to end. It should be a Pepsi ad. I want to get the logo here. Please sponsor my stuff and fix my cold. Dear Pepsi. So this is the first part, and I just wanted to see if there's anything else I wanted to add. I have, yeah, I'll talk about it now. Because I wrote the article in a way that was like make sure you read to the end. I'm not going to make you wait till the end. We're going to talk about it now. So, a thing that you can layer onto this, because if you're like, hey, that advice makes sense, but how many things should I go try? And what happens if I'm like 4 months into trying the first thing and I still haven't finished it? Like, am I doing it right? Because that's what you said to do, Nick. The answer is no. But there's a thing that we can do, and it's called time boxing. And time boxing is a really handy tool. It's, I mean, anyone can do it, and I use it for different things, but I recommend people think about this and they try leveraging it. So we can time box our effort that we're spending on the what have you tried part, right? So you come to me and I say, what have you tried so far? And you say, I have tried nothing. And I go, great, you should go try some things. And then you go, okay, well, I should time box this effort. And I would say, that's a great idea. And then you would say, well, I have no idea how long I should time box this for. Should it be a week, a day? And we can have a conversation about that. This is something that I would say takes experience to try and figure out. And even after gaining a lot of experience, there might be situations where you're like, I feel like I might want to spend like 2 weeks like really digging into this. And someone else might say like, no way, man, like we got to get started on that like next week. So like you spend a couple days this week, we're going to talk about it and we're getting started right away next week. So I think personally that over communicating is a good thing in general, especially if you're going to be time boxing some effort and you want to get some agreement on what makes sense. But every team's going to be different. So I would say, hey, like, I think it's a great idea to time box that. And you might say, well, Nick, I'm not really sure how long I should do that for. And I would say, okay, well, given the scope of this work, I think that if you spent maybe 2 days time box and trying some things out, you have 2 days to go experiment, learn, right? Especially if you're junior, I usually err on the side of like, you're new to this. I want you to go take some time to learn. Or I might even have a more senior engineer that's very capable, but they're in a new area. And I'm saying, hey, you're new here, like in this area, maybe go take a little bit of extra time, right? I'm trying not to rush you through this. Yeah, I want the work done. Yeah, the business wants the work done. But I actually think it's valuable for you to go a little bit slower right at the beginning here, feel things out. But it's situational. So I might say, hey, go take 2 days to go do this. And you go, great, okay. And you might even say, like, how many things should I try here? Like, are we good with like, we'll look at the first option. And that's another great conversation, right? So being able to talk about things and get on the same page is like this really undervalued thing that I feel like a lot of people just don't do. And we can do it for almost free, and we should. So I might say time box it for 2 days. And I think, if you can try 2 things out, we can go look at them together after. And I'll say at the end of the time boxing, if you've only made it through one, maybe you started looking at the second one, we can still talk through that, but we'll see. Okay, so now we've time boxed it. That means that if you're thinking about your work and you're halfway through the first day, if you're like, I haven't even started the first thing, I mean, probably not a good spot to be in, because in theory, if things were equal, you'd be starting on the second thing the very next day. So if you make it through the first day and you're still barely started on the first thing, you're probably falling behind. That is not the end of the world. Okay? This is just something that you can leverage to say, oh, wait, am I on track for this? Like, based on the expectations that were put on me, I actually feel like maybe I'm behind on this now. Maybe I should talk about this. And spoiler alert, the answer is yes, you should talk about it, because this is another thing that people shy away from, where they're like, oh no, there's an ETA. We talked about a deadline for this, and I'm not on track for it. If I just be quiet, no one will know. That's not how it works. In fact, people will know. And then it's a bigger problem later when someone's like, what do you mean for a week you've been blocked on this and no one said anything? So please communicate status. Please, if you're working at a place where people are like mean to you for not being on track or something, and you're being communicating early and often, something else has got to change there. The problem's not you. People should be communicating this stuff very early, very often. Okay, so couple things we just touched on there: time boxing, aligning on what's supposed to be done, and then the expectations around that as well. So that's to try and round out if you're new, here are some things you can try. Okay, we're going to shift gears and look at it from the helping side, and I'm going to answer Ryan Wakefield's question here, and then we'll do Ryan's question, then we'll switch gears. So Ryan says, feelings on orgs and not investing in their IT departments and providing educational programs. So a good question. I think that because it's a general question, I have to give you a general answer and try and give some more specifics in my answer so that it's more meaningful. So, the high level general answer is yes, I agree that probably doesn't feel good. I think that in general, organizations should try and find ways to invest in the education of their employees in different ways. Now, what I'll add on is now some of the more specific things. Let's take a small company. Okay, so let's imagine a startup that is fighting to stay alive. I would be totally understanding if a startup that's fighting to stay alive is like, we cannot spend extra money on educating people. Now, maybe they can offer something in other ways. Maybe there's staff members at the startup that are able to help contribute back to the team by giving them, tech talks or something, right? So finding free ways to try and like help educate. They're giving up some time maybe to try and help with that. I think that could be smart because I think, like I said, I think companies should try and do it. But if it's a small company that doesn't have capital, I think I would be very forgiving. I don't know if that's the right word of that kind of situation. Like I just wouldn't have that expectation on a very small company. And then on the second part, and then I'll answer your second question as well. If you're at a larger company, so if a company has a lot of capital, right? So, big tech companies are a good example of this. And you don't have to be a big tech company necessarily. I just mean a company that's got some money in the bank. They're not like, oh no, if we're cutting budgets so that, we have to cut all the pizza parties or else we're going to have to shut the doors. I think if they are being intelligent, if they're thinking long term and they have capital, they should be trying to have budget for education. This might look different at different places. Again, larger companies generally have more money in the bank to be able to do this, reinvest into teams. And I think the issue is less about, from my experience at least, it's less about companies not offering stuff. And from my experience, this is my manager bias. My manager bias is that I have been in situations where people provide feedback to management and leadership and they go, we wish that management would support this. And we go, we do. We literally have budget. We literally tell you that there's budget for it. We just ask that you're looking for the programs and you're bringing them to us, right? You want to go take a training somewhere, bring that to us. Right? Or have a like if I'm your manager directly and you never talk to me about the fact that you want some training on something, I don't even know to go look for that for you. And to be honest, I would probably push back and say, I think you should try looking for some of the training first, right? Bring me some examples, some things you're thinking about, and we'll talk about if there's budget and how that looks. And we would like to try and support it. And if you're struggling and you can't find anything, then I'll say, sure, like, let me try looking too. But I would generally say from my experience, it's been more like that, where people are like, the companies they're at are willing to pay and have budget for it. And then people assume that it's supposed to be like given to them, or like someone's going to come by and say, by the way, training's coming up. Here you go. We're sending you off to this conference. And a lot of the time it's the other way around and I'm not trying to say managers are perfect at this by no means, but managers should be like, hey, there is training budget. Like you should be trying to look for these things if you're trying to learn. So I've had people come to me and ask to go to conferences, and I'm not even sure if we've ever said no. Whether that was at Magnet Forensics or Microsoft, I think the closest thing to a no is we can't cover the whole cost because it's outside of the budget scope. But we can cover part of it, right? I think that's like the most I've ever had to push back on something. And people were like, oh man, that's awesome, cool. And like, I can take the days off work to go to that. And I'm like, yeah, like that's part of the training. You get to go do that. And they're like, this is so cool. Even though sometimes they're paying a little bit out of pocket. So I think that companies should be doing it though. They should have budget for it. How do you approach leadership to educate them about the necessity of those programs? This is interesting because this is something I would hope is like part of the culture in the leadership at a company, is to understand that they should be investing into their employees. Now, so Ryan's saying I work in healthcare for hospital and they invest heavily in medical training education. Awesome. So that's good, right? For companies that don't, this is one of those situations where, like, if you don't have visibility into the finances of the company, maybe they're like, we really want to be able to do that, and we can't afford it. It's too much risk in our budget. Maybe that's the case, right? But I would still bring it up. I would always recommend, and this is like general advice that I would tell anyone on any team I ever work for, any team I ever work with that works for me, because I work for them. Any people I'm managing, regardless of the team I'm on, I would tell them, please, if you have thoughts, concerns, whatever, like suggestions, please talk to me about them. So in Ryan's case, if Ryan was like, how do I start having this conversation? I would say, bring it up with your manager. I would love to hear about that. If someone was like, hey, I think that would be really valuable if we could get some type of education or training covered through work. Like, I agree. Now, again, before Microsoft, I was at Magnet Forensics. When that was a really small company, when we were like 8 people, if someone came to me and said that, I would say, I think that's a really cool idea. I don't know if we're going to exist next week. Maybe we should try to exist next week before we talk about that. It wasn't ever that bad for us, but I would say in the beginning, it was probably more like, I don't know if we have budget for that kind of stuff. And we had a really good HR leader, though. I feel like early on, she actually made sure that we could have conversations like that. So if employees did come to us, we could say, yeah, like, you want to go to that thing, it will get covered. But I think it starts with having conversations about it, to let, like, if management and leadership is not doing it, maybe it's not because they don't support it. Maybe it's because they're not advertising it as much, because it does save on budget if no one's using it. But also, if the budget's there, then people should be trying to use it. So maybe they have to advertise it more. So Ryan, I think my advice on that last part is start having the conversation, communicate why it's valuable to invest into people. I don't know. I feel like good leaders get it, and sometimes other people are so focused on trying to save money that they don't realize that, you know, people want to stay around in places where they feel valued, and part of feeling valued is being supported in your learning. So that's my recommendation there. Wannabe nerd. I'm going to read your comments backwards because I briefly read the first one. Companies offering certificates is fantastic. Can't wait to have such an offer. Yeah, I think, you know, I do strongly, if you're at a place and it's not being talked about, I suggest try having a conversation with your manager about it. I think it's important. I'll give you another example at Magnet Forensics. So I think this is super cool, actually. I worked at a digital forensics company, and as you might guess, when we're hiring software developers, the likelihood that they had a forensics background was basically zero, right? Who has a digital forensics background? Digital forensics people, that's it. Like, not generally not software developers. So what was very interesting was that as that company was maturing, and we had trainings, we had we had people that were brought onto the staff that used to be forensic examiners and forensic investigators. There you go. I combined both words like an idiot. We had both roles, right? We had people that had these experiences. So when there was training, we used to be able to say, hey, look, like, we have training for digital forensics that we're selling. And, like, wouldn't it be really helpful if our employees that were software developers or testers or product managers could go have this experience and go learn about digital forensics and actually have a better domain understanding of all of the stuff they're building? Hell yeah. So generally the cost was basically negligible, but it meant that someone would be away, right? So this was in my opinion, that was like an absolute no-brainer to support. you might be in an industry that's kind of like this. Maybe it's not digital forensics, but maybe it's a very specific domain. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. I don't want to embarrass myself trying to come up with a random example, but you might be in a very specific domain where it's not common that people have this knowledge. But then you can go, like, if the company has training, maybe that's something else to get the domain experience. If you're looking for other training, it's general. Like, I want to learn Kubernetes. Okay, like, if that's not something that your company just is doing already, pardon me, then that might be a conversation to have, like, hey, I think that learning Kubernetes would be really helpful here. Part of, like, I feel like it would be motivating and engaging for my career growth, and talk to your manager about it. Advadia, I don't know if I got your name right, but a big fan of your Dome Train courses. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. I will try to plug them a little bit more later. I did just launch another one for soft skills with Ryan Murphy, so I will plug those a little bit later. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Want to be nerd, back to your question. Have you ever thought about founding a startup company? Yes. Yes, I have. I think long term in my career, I don't know what that looks like. But I suspect at some point in my career, maybe, and who knows, maybe it's like when it's my time to retire. I have no idea, right? I love working at Microsoft, so what I'm about to say is not like, I can't wait to leave and get out of here. I do like working at Microsoft. I would say, though, that I envision, like, I don't know if I'll ever retire, which sounds kind of funny because, like, I like to work. So maybe it is during retirement. Maybe it's before then. I don't know. But at some point in my life, I would like to run a software company. I think, like, from a sense of fulfillment, I think that's where I'll get it. And I think from some of my experience, like, I have never run my own company, but I think from some of my experience, I understand it's not easy, right? I understand, like, I have, side projects. I have a failed SaaS company that was called Meal Coach that I worked on for 2 years on the side. We could never make $1 from it. So that failed. By the way, on Instagram, DevCrafts, I see your comment. I will answer you in just a moment. So I had that failed. I have Brand Ghost that I'm building now on the side, and has paying users, which is cool. So Brand Ghost is the first SaaS company that I've had on the side, that I'm helping build that has paid users, which is a really cool experience, right? Like, I've never had that before. So I think at some point in my life, that'll be a goal of mine, because I love building stuff, and I'd like to be in a position where it's not about, like, oh, look at me, I'm the boss, but I feel like, I'll put it this way. When I worked at Magnet Forensics, I didn't own the company, right? But I felt like I was given a lot of autonomy, and there was a lot of trust given to me. And that was such an empowering feeling to be like, I know that, like, when I go to work hard, I know that it's going to have, like, huge impact. And I'm not saying, like, where I am now, I don't have autonomy, or, like, I don't have impact, because I certainly do. But, I would say, being at a startup early stage and watching it grow, I feel like I genuinely feel like I was directly responsible for a lot of the success that happened. And that feeling of being like, oh, if I just work my butt off and I can see results and be part of that, I think that's one of the reasons why I think I'd like to do a software company in the future. Future is a long time, so I don't know what that means. DevCrafts on Instagram is saying, hi, Nick, have you ever considered writing a book? I have been approached about it. I don't know if I could ever do it. The publishing companies that have contacted me want more technical books. And to be honest, this is just my perspective. It's because you're asking a personal opinion of mine, I will share it. So this is not me trying to pick on people's different opinions on this. So I think writing a book is a ton of work. I think that people that have done it, like especially technical books, like hell yeah, good for you. I think that's so cool. Um, I've written lots of technical blogs. Like I have hundreds of blog articles on devleader.ca. When I started building Brand Ghost, writing blogs was the first thing that I stopped doing to get time back, because I found written blog posts were the and again, this is just my experience, they were the worst return on my time investment. They cost me nothing to do, like financially, but they took so much time. I had to make sure that I was driving traffic there, so optimizing like SEO and stuff. And really, like all that seemed to come out of it was that people would just like nitpick them. Like that's how it felt. So I was like, I don't like, it's the first thing that drops. I would love to go back to writing more blog posts, but in terms of a book, I don't know. A technical one, I can't ever see that happening. And if I think if I were to write a book, it would be about software development in general and my experiences doing it, as sort of guidance. Because I think that aligns more with naturally what I like to talk about, like conversations like this, right? If I could put that into book format that was structured in a way that was useful, that might be fun. But from a time perspective, I simply don't have time. Maybe there's some options with AI and ghostwriters and stuff like that. I don't know, but it's not on my list of things to do at this point. Thank you for the awesome questions. I'm going to go back to the article and talk about the vicious cycle, because now we're going to talk about it from the other side. But please don't hesitate if you have other questions and stuff. Like you can see, I'm answering them when they come in the chat. I'm happy to talk through them. I'm not happy to be coughing, but let's look at it from the other angle now. Okay, so you are the more senior developer. Okay, you're the person that people are coming to get help. Now, I know there's a few of you in the chat right now. I know there's at least one, because Infected FPS said this right at the beginning, and Infected FPS is here every week. So I know that they have experienced this and are experiencing it. And I think it's very common. There we go from Ryan. Book title, Dev Leader, Software Development from My Point of View. I think we need to say sorry in there somewhere, because I'm Canadian, so I have to apologize that I've written a book. And I could say, Dev Leader, what would it say? Dev Leader, a book about software development, and then I would say in brackets, sorry. Maybe something like that would be good. So, if you are the person that people are coming to for help, let's kind of go back through this situation, okay? So, at the beginning of the stream, I talked about when I found myself in this situation. I'm trying to be helpful. I'm going around helping people. And then I'm like, I don't have time. So I had to go invent more time. I went to downloadmoretime.com. No, I basically just started working more. And it took me a long time to realize, but the answer was not to help people the same way. The answer was certainly not to stop helping. But I had to approach things differently. And the way that I frame this is like, if you're feeling overwhelmed because either one person is constantly coming to you for help, or multiple people are, and you're like, oh my God, I don't have time for this. Like, you know, you're starting to feel burnt out or overwhelmed just because like it's nonstop. Like, I got to get my shit done. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here. Is shit a swear word? I don't know. Sorry for saying it. I got to get my stuff done. So if you're feeling like, oh no, I'm getting overwhelmed, the thing that I want to say is like, I'm sorry, but it's probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. And that's because we're going to have to spend a little bit more time with someone before they're going to start getting the help they need and leaving you alone. So what does this look like? You might already know where I'm going with this. Khalil just says K. KMKK. Awesome. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but I hope it's good. Maybe a cat's walking on their keyboard. So that's just distracting now. Stop it. When people are asking you for help, instead of just giving them the answer, right? There are literally times I can remember early on where I was walking around helping people and I would type the code in, like on their keyboard, I would type the code. Right. And if you think about, if you're in this situation where someone's constantly asking you for help and I'm going to have to mute this person. Put them into a timeout. Nice. I don't even know what that means. Sorry, Khalil, you're in timeout in the corner. If you can imagine that you've had especially junior people coming to you asking for help and you're just like, screw it, man. Like, I'm just like, here, yeah, let's go to your keyboard here. Like, here's the answer. Here's how you type the line of code. Doom, done. And you're thinking, finally, go away. I can get my work done. Right? Because you're stressed out now. You're like, I just want to get my stuff done. The problem is that you've now taught them that when they're stuck, all they have to do is come to you and their code will get written. You've reinforced the wrong pattern, unfortunately. And I don't think people look at this like consciously. They're not like, oh, great, that's Nick. He's going to be the one that codes all my stuff. I actually think it happens more subconsciously. I'm not an expert on this by any means. I'm just a dude that writes code and manages teams. But I think what actually happens is that people, they're getting stuck for some of the reasons we talked about earlier. And they go, I feel like, again, I think it happens subconsciously. Like, I'm just going to ask for help because, you know, when I ask for help, things get done. So it trains them the wrong way. It reinforces the wrong thing. So the way that I think you can help with this is using the same cue that I said earlier, which is someone comes to you and asks for help. And then you say, what have you tried so far? And if they say, well, I haven't tried anything, I don't actually know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Great. Now you know it's a clarity thing. Get them unblocked, get them sent away, right? If you're not the one to offer clarity, you should say, oh, like, go talk to the product owner about that. Oh, you don't know, but someone else assigned this work to you, go talk to them about it, no worries. But if you know, like, that's something that you can easily clear up and tell them to go. Okay? There are some things we could do here, which are like, for example, depending on how this is done, if it's a pattern, you might be able to have conversations in your team about, hey, when we're giving out the work items and people aren't clear on them, maybe it's because people aren't putting enough detail in the tickets. Right? Like, I don't know. There could be a million different things here. But in my opinion, this is a cue that has worked so well and it's so simple. And I want to share one more story. And I've talked about this one either on stream or on Code Commute or both. But I want to talk about it because it's a real story and it sounds kind of made up, but it's like, it was so ridiculously like helpful for reinforcing just how important this is. Okay. I'm not going to say anyone's names. I try not to ever on stream unless someone like literally wants me to talk about something, and that's a different story. But at some point in my career, I had a junior developer that was on my team. And I can literally, and this is like, we were still in the office. This is before, you know, the remote work days. We're in the office and she's very smart person. So I want to start this off by saying this has nothing to do with her not being intelligent. A very smart person. And I can remember that we would, you know, get our work assigned and I could sense her. She sat beside me. I could sense her. She would turn in her chair and I could sense that she was waiting for me to like feel the presence. And inevitably I would kind of like turn and she would say, hey, like, I need help with this. And I was like, okay, like, no problem, right? I'm sitting right here. I can help. No worries. And we go through it. Okay. And then inevitably, either shortly after, the next day, whatever it happened to be, inevitably I would sense the same thing. I would feel someone's looking at me, and I would do the thing in my chair where I'd turn, and she'd say, "Hey, I need help." Okay, yeah, no worries. I don't know why she never like yelled at me and said, "Hey, Nick, help me." But you know, she's trying to make sure that I had space, but she would constantly ask for help. And then I realized, and this is like years into being a manager before I realized, this is going to sound silly when I say it. This is why I say it sounds kind of made up. But I literally realized that she had trouble problem solving. Or at least taking initiative to do it. Not because she's not smart. She's a very, very smart person. But I was like, oh crap. Like, I realized the pattern. Every time that she asked for help, she had never done anything yet. And every time, the way that she got unblocked was that we would just get her to do stuff. And what started happening was, this is where I came up with the "what have you tried so far" thing, was that after a while, because I'm not going to lie, I would start to get kind of fed up from it. Not because I don't want to help her, but because I'm thinking like, why is this not getting better? Like, why does it seem like it's not quite the same question, but it's almost the same style of question? Like, why is she just not trying things? So I would say, "Hey, what have you tried?" And I would literally catch her going, I haven't tried anything yet. And in my head, I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean you haven't tried anything? And then it was like, well, do you understand what to do? Yeah, like, no, I think it makes sense. And then I'm going like, okay, yeah, we'll go try something. Like, it's fine. And I don't know, like in hindsight, maybe this was like, she was nervous. She wanted to like ask permission if it was like okay to try things. So I don't really know. But I do know that this cue worked so well. Okay, so I was trying to give you the visual of like her like turning in her chair, and I could sense it, because this is what started to happen after giving this cue enough times. I could sense her turning in her chair, and I kind of learned this, right? So I would kind of see it out of the corner of my eye, and I could literally see her turn and go, and she would be sitting there thinking and go, huh. And she knew, I haven't tried anything yet. The first thing Nick's going to ask me is, what have I tried so far? And she'd think, and then she would turn back to her desk and start trying something. And it seems silly. I get it. It seems silly, but like, it literally taught her that she needed to try doing some things on her own. And then she would turn to me. And then I could sense that she wasn't doing the thing where she's thinking. And I would turn to meet her and say, what have you tried so far? And she'd say, well, I've tried these couple of things. And I'd say, great. What are you stuck on? And she'd say, well, this one isn't working, or this one is, or both of them are working. And I'd say, this is great. And it taught her throughout the time that we worked together just to try problem solving on her own first. And it, like I said, seems like a silly thing, but it worked so well. And it really reinforced something that I've been sharing with people for years now, from both sides. So that, that was an example of teaching her how to ask questions effectively. But I use this advice when I'm talking to more senior developers that feel like they're not getting time back. Because this is what I needed to hear when I was going through that phase in the beginning of my career when I was trying to help people, is stop giving the answers to people. This is the vicious cycle part. Stop giving the answers directly to people. Get them to try doing things first. Get them to try problem solving, try exploring, try getting stuck. So if you are the person getting asked the questions, this is the coaching for you, right? Stop giving the answer right away. Ask them what they've tried so far. If they haven't tried anything, send them back. Maybe recommend some time boxing, depending on your comfort level with that, right? Maybe you need to talk to the product owner or the manager, figure out what's expected there. Easy conversation to have. Please do it. But send the person back. Go try something. Make sure they know that like it's a safe place to fail, right? Let them know like this is a time for you to go learn and try this out. It's okay. Go try something. Come back. But send them away to go try things. Don't tell them, I don't got time for you, right? Get them to try some things out. So this is why I said it takes a little bit of extra time, because the reality is you're telling them, come back, right? You are telling them to come back, and it is going to take more of your time. You're going to have some deeper conversations with them. But what ends up happening when you do this is that it starts teaching other people how to go problem solve, how to go navigate ambiguity, and then try things out. This is literally the experiences that we need to build up as software developers. You end up, unfortunately, short-circuiting some of that experience just by giving away answers. I'm going to go check out the chat because there's a whole bunch of stuff that came in here. So give me one sec. Infected FPS says, I don't know where I picked it up because I never really had a mentor past my first 3 years, but I never write a single line of code when helping someone. I direct them. Yes. So on this note, if you're pair programming and you're a more senior person guiding a more junior person, I don't know there's a funny phrase for it, but basically, like, get the person you're helping to be the driver. And sometimes it might feel like a pain in the ass because you're like, just let me type the line of code. Like, it's the line above where you are right now. Just let me do it. Don't. Let them do it. Let them try things out. You can offer value in different ways, and you can also practice patience, but let them drive with the keyboard and mouse. Let them do it. It's really important so that they learn. We notice this type of thing happen. I'll give you another quick example for on-call rotations. I have worked with amazing engineers and site reliability engineers, and I have seen the difference between an amazing site reliability engineer helping someone by saying, oh, no, I know you're stuck on this. Like, I'll go run, here's the commands, and I'm going to go run them for you. And it feels good because you're like, oh, hell yeah. Like, crisis averted. We got this. Yes, I have the expert coming in. But you know what happens next time? You say, oh, what were those commands again? The ones that you never actually had to go run? The ones that you're not really familiar with because you've never actually typed them and used them? And you reach back out and you say, hey, like, that thing came up again. Like, could you tell me the commands again? And they go, oh yeah, no problem. I ran it for you. And you're like, awesome. This is great. It's the same problem, right? We need to be able to try doing the things ourselves to learn them and reinforce them. Choose reality. I had a lead that would answer dumb questions with a let me Google for you. Google every link. I caught on real quick to be actually stuck before asking. Yeah. I hope in that case, I mean, it sounds hilarious, but I hope in that case that person had a really good, like, radical candor relationship with you or other people on the team. Because I think with the wrong receiving end of that could be like catastrophic, where people are like, well, I never want to ask a question ever again in my life, and I'm going to go, back to my desk and die now. But I think, depending on the relationship, it could be a funny way. It could get people to realize, like, as you said, get stuck first. I don't know what your name is there. Jacker Quoo 32. Well, that's actually a good way to ask them. I find it to be extremely effective. It's very simple. I don't know if that was sarcasm or not, but I find it just works really well. Ryan says, I have recognized I am a senior getting asked all those questions. I need to create more documentation. This is something I haven't talked about yet. So I will, let's just answer right now. But I struggle to find the time. So your advice is super helpful for me. So yes, in this case, there's another trick we can do here, which is when people are stuck on stuff, you get them to go navigate it. You can actually help break the cycle even more. And one thing you can do is you can create the documentation for it. So the next time someone comes to ask you a question, you can say, I'm so glad you asked. Here's a link. By the way, a lot of the YouTube videos I make on DevLeader, I know that I'm making them for you, but a lot of them are made for me. And it's because I'm doing something, I get stuck, and I go, you know what? Next time I'm stuck on this, I'm Googling for myself. So, but one extra hack you can do here is when people are stuck and they come back to you because they've tried some things out and you say, excellent, this is so good. Let's go through the analysis together. And now that you've answered this for yourself, by the way, great job, it would be so helpful of you to contribute back to your peers. And if you could document this in some way that would make it nice and searchable for them, they can understand this, I think that would be an awesome improvement that you could give back to the team. And guess what? Now they become the expert. They get some documentation put together. They become the expert on it. So the next time that question has to get asked, you can say, oh, I'm so glad you asked that. Not only is there documentation, but Jim Bob over here wrote it, and he can now help you. So documentation, I've also talked about this a lot on Code Commute or in general, depending on the posts and stuff you might read from me. I love and hate documentation. I think in theory it's very helpful. I think in practice it is an absolute nightmare of a tax to maintain. So I think if you can get the right maintenance mode in place that feels like it's not a heavy tax, then it can be very valuable. So things like, hey, as you use it and it's out of date, update it. But I've seen people also go out of their way to document stuff and go crazy into it, and then it's out of date immediately, and then it just rots. So it needs to be low cost to maintain. Ryan says, one trick I like to do is all the person questions back. And one trick I like to do is all the person questions back and use the questions to guide them. I'm assuming ask the questions back. Doing so makes them feel like they came up with the answer. Yes, this is actually a coaching technique. And it's related. It's not the exact same, but basically you can have conversations with people almost exclusively by asking questions, and then they solve all their own problems, and they actually do come up with the ideas, which is really cool. So I definitely recommend that one. So if people are coming to you to ask for the answer, you can push back and say, like, so if someone's like, hey, I need to pick, which database tech to use. So you say, oh, what have you tried so far? And they go, they actually have. They're like, I've tried out MySQL and Postgres. Okay, cool. So what did you find? Well, seems like on the performance, blah, blah, blah. And you go, oh, interesting. And you keep asking questions. If you just keep asking questions, even when they ask you a question and they're like, so which one would you pick? You might say, well, which metrics did you go collect? Oh, latency, database size. Oh, interesting. So which ones of these are more valuable, right? You keep asking more questions, and a lot of the time people will, it's almost like rubber ducking, but you're kind of like doing the guiding for them. It's really interesting, but I highly recommend you try it out. It's a bit of a mindset shift. Like, I feel like if you haven't done it before, you actively have to think about doing it, because our instinct is probably just to answer stuff, but try asking questions. When I have done a little bit of management training and coaching specifically, they made us do exercises with other managers, and they said, you get to only ask questions back. It's hard, but try it. Do you have any good resources for that senior lead, coding best practices or architecture design patterns? Kind of. I have a bunch of blog articles on design patterns. I have an ebook on it, but I also have them in blog posts. I have videos on design patterns, but these ones are like the Gang of Four, not like distributed system patterns. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I was just reading the next comment, but I think it's a LinkedIn tag. I don't know, but when you ask about, do I have content or resources, I like to think that a lot of the stuff I put out can be valuable, but if it's programming specific, then a lot of the stuff I do for examples is in C#. So someone might say, well, that's not, relevant to me, but I have courses that I think would be helpful for seniors. I talk about a lot of this stuff on DevLeader, a lot more on Code Commute, and I'll maybe let me get through the questions and I'll plug some of the other stuff that I got, but I'll come back to that one. Maybe Code Commute's a good example of this stuff, but I don't feel like I don't have like technical resources for like senior leads on like architecture and things like that. I think there's lots of stuff like that out there. I still think personally a lot of that stuff just comes with practice. I think there's good resources out there still, but practice. I think James was tagging Greg is my impression of that. It's impressive to see someone at your level sharing so much on social media. What got you into it? I'd love to hear what inspires you to engage like this. Yeah, so the short answer to that is in 2013. Maybe this isn't short, I ramble a lot. 2013, I had become a manager at that point, and as I was trying to take management a little bit more seriously, because I was still, this is worth mentioning if you don't know my background. Before Microsoft, for the 8 years I was at Magnet Forensics, I was a software developer and engineering manager at the same time. So when you hear me talking about things from an engineering manager's perspective, please keep in mind that I've been writing software the entire time until Microsoft, and then I still code every single day outside of work. So I, in 2013, said, I'm going to learn in public because it's a really weird shift to go from being an engineer to an engineering manager. No one knows what the hell is going on. So I said, I'm going to start collecting resources, sharing this stuff out. Started writing my blog, which is devleader.ca. Did that for a little bit. And I think that I was too much focused on like vanity metrics. And I was like, no one's reading this stuff. Why am I doing it? And then I took a 10-year break. And I stopped that 10-year break because I was looking at other people that had been on social media for half the time and having tremendous success at it. And I said, all that they did was they stayed consistent. They just kept posting. It's not that they're not good at what they do, but I'm sure the first few things they put together sucked, because that's the case for everyone, and they just stuck to it. So I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it this time. It is extremely rewarding for me, like fulfilling, to be able to provide some help, something that I hope is helpful. And for someone that's like, hey man, like that really helped me. It doesn't matter how much, crap I get from trolls and stuff. Like it only takes one of those for me to be like, doesn't matter. You can say anything you want. I helped this person. So too bad. So that's really rewarding. But yeah, I just told myself that I'm just going to stay consistent. And I knew that to do it, I had to systemize how I post content on social media, which is why I built Brand Ghost on the side. We'll plug that in just a moment. But James says, I love that someone goes to someone's desk and writes code, but we have to continuously improve the root cause of why we need communication. Yeah. Write down a list of below to try, where to look for information, ask if the business question, talk to Rubber Ducky, best thing that ever happened to me. Yep. TCC, schedule a meeting or ping me. We should always keep ourselves open to communication, but let them know we are going to work on how they can help themselves. Yep. That's a critical part. It's not about telling people like, go away, my door is shut. It's about, hey, look, I'm trying to help you help yourself. And when you're helping yourself and you're still stuck, I'm absolutely here to help you. But you need to make sure they're familiar and comfortable with helping themselves. It's a skill. They have to practice it. And you need to practice telling them that, because otherwise you're not developing a skill, which is your boundaries. I also work with a guy that does the heroic time thing and gives the answers to people. I've had to stop him from doing that for me when I asked him about a domain he was an expert in. Yeah. It's challenging, right? I don't think people do it to be malicious in any way. I think they're just trying to help, right? So I think it's, if you can have that conversation with someone and saying like, sorry, I'm behind on the chat. I'm so Sod. Yes, it is an AMA. So yes, ask stuff. But yeah, I think if you can have conversations with people and say like, hey, look, I know it's going to take a little bit of extra time, but I'm trying to learn. Like, can you point me to the resources? If they exist, I'll go read and come back with questions. But, something to say like, hey, I'm just trying to learn, right? Please don't rush the answer for me, because then I will never learn. James says, what about those who has someone schedule time when they are blocked? Something that really grinds my gears. Yeah. Feels like we're blocking teamwork, but rotating a role who's helpful, who handles Gale, etc. is great. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I suggest this to people: block time in your calendar for focus time. And I still have people that will block, and I'll reject it. I use the block as a default to let people know, like, I plan to be focused here. If something critical comes up, I realize as a manager, like, a lot of my career is just like accommodating other people so that I can help and get stuff done. So I get it, but I try to use that as the default. And I'll, if I'm like, I don't think this is as important as me getting my focus time on something, I'll reject it. And I'll have people message and say, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, my calendar's blocked. Oh, so sorry. Like, didn't know. Okay. And then they'll reschedule, or they'll say, if you're blocked, this is the only time we could get, like, here's what we're going to talk about. And I go, great. Thank you. I'll follow up. But yeah, I think it's important, boundaries, block stuff in your calendar so you don't get consumed by tons of other stuff. Oh, and then Choose a Reality was saying let me Google that for you. It's funny if it is humor. I'm really bad. I got to read faster. Sorry. So Sod, I don't see your question coming up, but it is an AMA. Infected FPS says, literally had that happen where I had a weird edge case with some IIS setting, commented on a blog about it, had same issue a year later and found my own post. Yeah, I had a funny story where there's a woman that I mentor at work on a different team, and I don't think in her role she has to use C#, and I think something came up where she had to start learning C# for whatever reason, and she's like, I was Googling something about, or binging, I was searching, there we go, that's the more general term, I was searching for something online about how dictionaries in C# worked, and she sent me a screenshot, and it was like my name at the top of the Google search with my face on a YouTube video. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I've definitely, I find some of the best reasons for me to make content, if I'm ever like going through a dry spell of like, I don't know what to write about, or to make videos about, it's like, if anytime I have a problem and I'm searching online or asking LLMs for answers, I'm like, this is actually a great topic, because the next time inevitably this happens, I get to ask me. That's the position I want to be in. Choose a Reality. I wrote that kind of document just the other day as I explained to someone how to do a thing. I love that idea and should have asked them to do it as a new hire. Yeah, especially as new hires. I'll share this briefly too. I switched teams at the beginning of this year, and I had a bunch of new hires start with me, or shortly after, and they did such a tremendous job with keeping documentation up to date. And it was almost like scary that they took that behavior on so easily and so rapidly and so effectively, because they were like, it would come up in like sync meetings where someone was like, oh, I was stuck on this, but so-and-so pointed me to the documentation they wrote and like walked me through it. And I was like, did I just have all of my junior or new engineers like onboard each other like seamlessly somehow? Like, it worked really well, but it worked well because they leaned into it, right? They said, hey, look, documentation was a little rough in these areas. We'll get it going. And inevitably everyone else on the team like followed in their footsteps. It was super cool. The reason why I'm asking is because sometimes I struggle with giving advice because of all the new technology coming out, and wanted to start the group out on the right foot. Yeah. So yeah, for sure though, in terms of, I'll kind of repeat that part though, in terms of like architecture, I do not, just because a lot of the content I put out is not really like architecture. I talk about plugin architecture, but again, my C# or my examples are in C# for basically everything programming related. If you're looking for more like career or role focused kind of information, I think Code Commute is a good example. I cannot review resumes. I'll share. I just want to share this with you so you can understand that it's not because I don't want to help you. This is a perspective I shared on Code Commute actually, which I'll plug these in just a moment. I'm the kind of person that will, I take on a lot of things. So I have my job, I have my wife, we have 3 dogs, we have 2 cats, we don't have kids. I want to go to the gym every day. I used to be into bodybuilding. I've kind of retired from that. I've been sick recently, so I've been going every day. I am trying to launch a SaaS business on the side that has real paying users. I try to put out 3 YouTube videos a week. I write a newsletter every week. I post every single day on social media. I live stream, try to do twice a week. I do a lot of stuff, and I don't have enough time for even the things that I want to do. I am operating at over 100% capacity. Unfortunately, I do this to myself. And I'm not telling you this because I'm trying to brag about how much I do. I'm telling you this because I would love to be able to dedicate time to being able to help at a granular level of reviewing resumes, but I simply cannot. I simply do not have time to do it. So I apologize for that, but that's the sort of the reality. So at some point, I need to make sure that I'm focusing on my things because I just do not have capacity to do all of the things that I would like to do. So that's my reason. So I do apologize for that, but I cannot accommodate. I think I got through all the questions somehow. I wanted to see if there's anything else that I wanted to add for the seniors, but I think we ended up covering it, especially through some of the questions. Yeah, I do think that's it. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna plug some stuff. So thanks for being here. Thanks for thanks for waiting for me to get through all the questions. That was a lot. I'm gonna switch over to full screen mode. So by the way, this is the article that I was mentioning. So depending on when you join the stream, I will just link it again. This is my newsletter. And if you enjoy the live streams for this session that I do on Mondays starting at 7 Pacific, I will generally be kind of walking through my newsletter article. Not always, but like 95% of the time, that's what it's been. This is not me telling you that if you're like, man, I don't want to subscribe to a newsletter, newsletters suck. I'm not telling you got to subscribe. It is totally free. If you want the archive, that's paid for. The archive that's paid for comes with Discord access. So that's a private Discord where, you can ask questions and stuff. If you're like, I don't care, Nick, but it would be kind of handy to know what we're going to talk about, just go to weekly.devleader.ca. Again, it's fine. You'll see the article that comes out on Saturday. That means you have Saturday, Sunday, and all of Monday to check up on it and see what we're going to talk about. Even if you just want to pull it up during the live stream to read through it, weekly.devleader.ca. That's what this is. I will plug courses next. It says you're famous now. Who is this on LinkedIn? It's not coming through on the chat. I'm pausing what I'm doing to see who you are. James. I'm not famous. There's not like thousands of people on this live stream or something. That would be funny though. But thank you, James. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. So the course that just launched that I did with Ryan Murphy is this new soft skills one. So you'll notice that on Dome Train, this has been a big thing for .NET developers, C# developers on Dome Train. Okay, almost all the courses are .NET and C#. And Nick Chapsis has allowed Ryan Murphy and I to create courses that are for career development, which is awesome. So it's super cool because this is the stuff that I like to talk about. I like talking about software engineering. I like talking about career development. This is what I do all day, every day for the last 12 years. So the one that we just launched is about soft skills. So I'll pull that up here. I will also put it in the chat if you're interested. So there you go. But if you're not on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, unfortunately, you have to type dometrain.com. So if you're interested, you can check that out. I realize, sorry, if you're on Instagram, this is clipped. It's annoying. I understand. But you can see this is the curriculum. We do try to make sure in our courses that we're going through some practical examples too. So that way, and it's cool because since Ryan and I do it, we'll actually act out some of the things. And the part that may not be obvious to you is in the parts that we act out together, we actually don't give each other a heads up, which is pretty crazy. So we actually get on camera and we say, okay, like in this one, where is it? It's, is it here? Yeah. So this one, exercise and constructive feedback example. Okay. So we know it's about constructive feedback and we both give constructive feedback, but we don't tell the other person what the scenario is. We just start the conversation. So you're seeing what's obviously it's not like the scenario is not real, but the interaction is like, it's not, it's genuine how we're like trying to respond to each other. It's pretty fun. So we try to make sure we include stuff like that so that you have examples of what these things actually look like. Because yes, theoretical conversation stuff is valuable, but like we say with the programming stuff, you have to practice this stuff. So we try to give you some examples. There are also some worksheets that you can use in this course as well. So try to do more of that as we go forward. But we have this new course, so that's the soft skills one, getting promoted as a software engineer, pardon me, and then nailing the behavioral interview. This one is not about coding and system design. This is about the other types of questions like, tell me about a time where. So completely different focus. And then, of course, if you're interested in learning C#, I have the 2 courses on Dome Train. This is such a cool honor to be able to have the Getting Started and Deep Dive ones. So Getting Started literally takes you from I have never coded in my life before, and I'm going to start learning C#. So I do think that that's I spend a lot of time, if you've seen my YouTube channel, a lot of the tutorials I have are for beginners. So this is a cool way for me to try and channel that into something more organized. So bunch of courses here. But again, I want to be very clear with people. Yes, these courses are for sale. Yes, they cost money. But I always want to be in a position, and I hope that you feel this way about what I do on social media. I will always put out as much free content as I possibly physically can. Because I want to be in a position where you see the free content and you go, I like what Nick has to say. I like how Nick explains it. And if there are things that feel applicable that you are like, I want it more organized and I want the accountability because there is a cost associated with it, then you feel comfortable paying for it. I don't want to be in a position where I'm like, hey, go buy this stuff and like, I can't wait to steal your money and I hope you learn nothing. Like, I'm not trying to trick anyone. I want to demonstrate with all of my other content, like you're about to get the same type of stuff just in a very organized way. That's my goal. So I hope that helps. Yeah, and so for Ryan, I actually don't control the prices. So on Dome Train and stuff, the Black Friday stuff ended, but there is a sale right now. It's kind of unique. So you can see at the top until January 2nd, when you have more than one item in your basket, the cheapest one is free. So that's pretty cool. The Black Friday stuff was 40% off. So Nick Chapsis, who runs Dome Train, does run sales. So if you are like, hey, this is cool, I don't want to pay out of pocket, I understand. Like I'm not here to say, again, go, spend the money that you don't feel comfortable spending, but if it's discounted and you're waiting for it, there's options that come up. There's also the pro subscription. So if you're like, screw it, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pay and get courses, you can get a pro subscription and you can watch all the courses. So something to think about. And maybe back to what we were saying earlier in the stream about training, maybe you talk to work and you say, hey, work, wouldn't it be cool if I could get some training and I know just the site for it? There's an idea. Then everyone wins, right? So there's something to look forward to. If I jump over to my YouTube channel, this is probably the one that people know. This is Dev Leader. This is my main channel. It has all of my edited videos with my stupid face on the thumbnail. These are tutorials. They are conversations like this that are generally more polished, right? They're edited and I get fancy thumbnails. So this is, I suspect most people that are here probably know me from this channel. You should sell it as a video book. James, what should I sell as a video book? Maybe I will. So the course as a video book is that the courses are, I create the material and then it's licensed. So I don't actually, the course material is not mine. But yeah, this is my main YouTube channel. If you aren't subscribed to this and you like this kind of stuff, there you go. And the other YouTube channel. So this is the one that I've been doing on the side. So this is, you can see it. This is crazy. It's grown a lot in the past month. If I refresh it, so it says 765 subscribers. Come on, internet. We're already over 800. That's cool. This channel is outperforming my main one, for a reference. Okay, so this, you can see every video, every thumbnail is me in a car. I literally just put the camera up in the car and I film myself driving to and from work. And the conversations are very much like what you're watching right now, except without the chat. It's not live. So if you like how I'm talking through things, I tell people, submit a comment. Like, is there something we can check that has a comment on it? I don't know. Maybe this one. Right, so right here, this one came in today. So I'm going to basically go make a code commute video for this person. So when I drive into work on Wednesday, or maybe on the way home from CrossFit tomorrow, if I can actually make up, this person's asking about transitioning. Saying code commute is hilarious. You rage at traffic. Yes, you also get to see the real Nick. You see me get mad at traffic. But tomorrow for me is not an office day. Mondays and Wednesdays are, but the other week was pretty hectic with a lot of commuting. But this person was asking about basically moving to a product owner role from a developer role. So I'm going to spend one of my commutes talking about that. And so this channel is basically driven by people asking questions. And if I happen to get through them, I go to Reddit and I just pick a Reddit topic from experienced devs and talk about it. So definitely check that out if you like this kind of thing. It's just that it's not live, because that would be totally reckless. And I'm not living my life like that. So, folks, I think that's it, though. My voice is about to expire. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I still haven't figured out when I'm going to resume my coding live streams. I apologize. I was trying to get back in the groove of that. I don't think it's going to... it's not going to be tomorrow, especially because I've been sick and I really want to get back to getting to the gym, but... we'll see. But those will resume at some point. Otherwise, though, I will see you next Monday, same time, 7 p.m. Pacific. And if you can't wait, then join me on Code Commute. People have been saying that they just turn it on when they're... I've heard people say they turn it on when they're cleaning the house, when they're commuting to work, or when they get to the office and they just have it kind of playing and listening through it. So choose a reality. I'm glad the algorithm threw you here too. That's awesome. But it's funny. I think that people are really liking Code Commute because they can just, it's almost like you're hanging out with me and I rant a lot more. As Saad was saying, I rant a lot about traffic. There's really stupid people driving out there. Like there's people that drive at night without their lights on. Just like, I don't even know how you see. And it's terrifying because when they're behind you, it just looks like there's nothing. There's no road. There's no other cars on the road because there's this black thing blocking all of the lights. Like, how are you driving like that? You should probably turn your eyes on. I don't know. It's weird. But if I don't see you next Monday, I hope to see you on Code Commute. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next time. Take care.